Hello, everybody. This is Casey, and I am finally putting out this episode of Healing with Nama. I'm sorry it took so long. Life happens, and I fell off track, and I'm really working hard to get back on track. So, I wanted to complete this episode. I did start it right after I made the first episode, and I just didn't finish it. So now I am finishing it. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for continuing to be a supporter and a listener of Healing with Nama, and supporter of I Just Want to Be Inspirational. If you're not following me on Instagram, please go ahead and do that. You can always find my social media handles in the show notes. But the podcast is at Healing with Nama on Instagram. And yeah, look out for more information from me. And if you are interested in Reiki, go ahead and go down a couple episodes. Listen to the Reiki episode that I did in last year in like November or October or something like that. And if you're interested in experiencing a Reiki session, contact me on Instagram and we can get you going. All right. So thank you for being patient with me. Thanks for listening. And here is the episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Healing with Nama. I am Casey, and today I wanted to do part 2 of my brain surgery journey. Last week I kind of just led up to me actually having the surgery and then going into recovery. And this week I just wanted to talk about what the recovery process was like for me. So I think the last time I left off on me going in to get another MRI after the surgery and knowing that someone that was previously in the MRI machine had COVID. So I was worried about that. Luckily, I never contracted COVID, so that's good. So yeah, after I had that MRI done, they wheeled me to my room. And like I said before, I was in the ICU floor just because of the type of surgery that I had. It was important for me to really be monitored. And I was there, and I think this night was the night where I had an anxiety attack. So if you've listened to previous episodes, you know that I started having anxiety attacks in 2016. And I was able to learn how to manage them over time with different things. And so up until this point, I really didn't have anxiety attacks like that. But the night of my surgery, or, the night of me going into the recovery room, I had a really bad anxiety attack. And I just remember telling the nurse, I feel like I need to run. And I don't know that I registered that it was an anxiety attack when I was having it. I just was like, I feel like I need to run. And she's like, well, you can't run because you're on bed rest. And I'm like, I know, but something, I just feel like I need to run. I'm feeling anxious. I need some help. And she gave me some medicine. She gave me first she had to get it approved, and then she was able to give me an anxiety medication to help me calm down and help me sleep. And it did help. It helped me not to be so anxious. It took a minute. But anyway, I had the anxiety attack. I wanted to run. I was in the recovery room alone, obviously, because it was COVID. So, this night I was able to eat something, and then I tried to sleep. It was really hard to sleep. The pain was really intense. So headaches. I had really, really, really bad headaches after surgery, very intense, super painful. And, in the hospital, they can't just keep giving you pain medicine. It has to be at a certain time. It has to be a certain amount of hours apart. And so there are times where you just kind of have to like go through the pain without any medication or anything like that. And it was really difficult. It was excruciatingly painful headaches. I couldn't get up. I couldn't really move that much. I couldn't sit up because I had to be bedridden for 3 days to make sure that everything was okay. So it was extremely an uncomfortable situation. And I stayed in the hospital for 5 days. All those days I was by myself. I would FaceTime my family and stuff like that. But it was really hard. Being in the hospital was really difficult. Having all those headaches, the pain. And after the first night, I wasn't able to eat anything. I was so nauseous. I couldn't keep anything down, like even water, crackers, everything just made me nauseous. Everything just was disgusting. So I really wasn't eating all those days that I was in the hospital, because everything just nauseated me. So it was, that was also difficult because I wanted to eat, but it just was difficult. To even get water down was just impossible. So luckily I had really nice nurses for the most part, who were understanding and who helped me, and just did the best that they could do. I had my pain medicine, so that kind of made me a little loopy. And then on the 5th day, I had to learn how to like stand up and walk again. It wasn't like, a major thing. Like I didn't forget how to do it. They just had to assist me and make sure that I didn't fall, make sure that I could do it. I could walk, I could get upstairs, I could get downstairs. Because at that time I lived in a 2-story house. So they had, the physical therapists come in and help me like sit up on the edge of the bed. Okay, sit here for a minute and then like get up, walk upstairs, walk downstairs with assistance to make sure that I would be okay and that they could send me home, and not worry about me. And then they wheeled me down to the ground floor, and that's where my mom picked me up. And it's so interesting or so funny to me because like I just was out of it while I was in the hospital. I felt awful. I just felt sad. It was just really yucky. I was like in a cloud. I couldn't eat anything. My mom was worried about me because of how I looked and sounded when I was on the phone, but I was also on pain medication. So, but when I got in the car with my mom, I was like, whoo, I feel so much better. It was like a light switch. I was like, oh, yes, let's go home. And it made a really big difference. Just getting out of the hospital and out of that environment and being somewhere familiar with someone familiar was really, really, I needed that. I needed to get out of the hospital and just feel better and be able to sit up and just kind of feel like myself a little bit. So that was nice. Then I was hungry, so that's also something different because I hadn't been hungry in 4 or 5 days. So we ended up going to Del Taco and I got a bean burrito, and that actually was one of the one of the only things that I could eat post surgery. Like for a long time, for several weeks, I could not keep anything down. I couldn't eat because I was so nauseous. Everything sounded disgusting. Like I just couldn't eat. Even the smell of food sometimes would nauseate me. And bean burritos from Del Taco saved my life. Because the beans are kind of like bland, and it just helped me be able to eat. So I ate on those for weeks, just so that I would have food in my stomach, because eating is important, especially when you're recovering. So I was glad to find at least one thing that I could manage to eat without, being nauseous. So the next, I guess, few months of recovery were in an up and down road. It was definitely a journey, having to rely on my family for the first 6 weeks of recovery because I really couldn't do much. I couldn't really lift anything. I couldn't really, stand for a long period of time, walk for long periods of time. They weren't advising me to stand up in the shower just in case, I got dizzy or I would fall. So I would have to sit and bathe and let somebody know when I was going to bathe so that they could just be there and just be aware in case something happened. So there was just a lot of things that I was restricted from doing. Sneezing, I couldn't sneeze like the normal way people sneeze through their nose. I had to sneeze through my mouth because the surgery was partially, going through my nose. So just to make sure that I didn't do any damage or, nothing happened with my nose, I had to sneeze through my mouth. So I had to be mindful of that. It's just a lot of little things that I had to do so that I could recover properly. And it wasn't anything super major, but it was taxing on me emotionally because I am a very independent person. I like to do things on my own. I like to get myself where I need to go. So not being able to drive and cook, feed, I could feed myself, but I couldn't cook. And sometimes I would be stuck upstairs in my room because going downstairs was just too much. And that feeling of not being able to be independent or feeling a little isolated because I'm, stuck in my room for a lot of the day did take a toll on me mentally. And there were a lot of times where I was sad and I would cry just out of frustration of not being myself, not feeling like myself. The headaches were excruciatingly painful after I had brain surgery. So, of course, it's going to affect my brain and recovering and things trying to get back to normal. So I had really horrible, horrible headaches especially in the beginning. And it was hard to deal with sometimes because you can only take pain medicine every few hours because they don't want you to get addicted to it. So sometimes you just have to kind of like power through it and work it out. And that was really difficult because it was like the most excruciating headaches I've ever had in my life. And then a few months after those headaches kind of subsided, I started to get migraines, which I'm still working through now, 2 years after surgery. They are not as frequent, but definitely I never had migraines before I had brain surgery. And I didn't even really know what it was happening when I first started getting migraines. I was like, is this a sinus infection? I feel dizzy. I feel yucky. Like all these things are happening. And I actually went back to my ear, nose, and throat doctor to make sure there was nothing going on with my sinuses because that's where I felt a lot of the pain. And then they ended up telling me that it's most likely migraines. So I had to find a neurologist to deal with that and start taking more medications for migraines because they were coming so frequently and it was so intense. The migraines would last for at least 3 days. And even if it wasn't like headache pain, it would be what they call a migraine aura. So I would get really nauseous and my eyes would get blurry or it would be really painful, a little bit dizzy. When it gets really bad, it goes down my arm. It's just a lot of like really yucky symptoms that go with migraines that I had to learn how to navigate. And thank goodness it's gotten so much better as time has gone on to where they're not as frequent anymore. But still something that I am working with, my doctors to eliminate because, like I said, I didn't have this problem before surgery. So eventually, hopefully very soon, it's something that I would like to not have to deal with anymore. But back to just the recovery part of it, I think the hardest part was just being down, like not being able to do anything for myself and learning how to let people help me and how to ask for help, which is something I'm still working on today, just not even as far as recovery, but just as a person. Reaching out and letting people know that I'm struggling is difficult sometimes. So I'm thankful for that part of the surgery because it taught me how to ask for help and not to just suffer and to let people help you and show up for you, and that it's okay. It doesn't make you weak or anything like that. It's just sometimes you need help. So I'm grateful for that lesson, just teaching me how to be a little bit more dependent. Still being independent, but also knowing when I can't do everything myself and I do need help, not being so prideful that I can't ask for help. My family was really, really helpful for me during the recovery process. I'm thankful for them for showing up for me and helping me. Thankfully, I lived with a lot of people during the time of my surgery, so I had a lot of people to lean on and just to be there for me emotionally, mentally, physically, all that good stuff, because it is a journey. The journey with Cushing's, especially from the time that, even before you get diagnosed, even when you don't know what's happening, it's still a journey. It's still mentally and physically draining and exhausting, and it's difficult to deal with because sometimes when you have Cushing's, you don't realize that that's what's happening to you. So you could have Cushing's and not know you have it, and now you're trying to figure out why you're exercising and you can't lose weight, or your hormones are imbalanced if you're a woman, or all these things are happening, and you could start to blame yourself because you feel like, okay, I tried to change my diet and I tried to exercise, but nothing's working. Like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And then, you go to the doctor and hopefully they're helpful. And then you find out that something else is happening that you don't really have any control over. And it's just a really big deal. It's a process. It's mentally, physically exhausting. It's emotionally exhausting. And I really hope that anyone out there that is dealing with it has emotional support and has people out there who, even if they don't understand what's going on, are willing to first believe you that something is happening and to be there for you and show up for you and in the way that you need them to show up for you. Because from the groups that I've joined on Facebook, for Cushing's patients, a lot of people feel like people don't believe them because sometimes Cushing's symptoms can be deceiving in a way because they mimic other symptoms, or it's hard to explain what's happening for you. Some of them are quote unquote invisible symptoms, so it's not something that people can see, but when something's going on with your body. And it makes it difficult if people don't believe you, especially people in the medical field. If you're having to fight for a diagnosis, for testing, for, advocating for yourself, it starts to take a toll on you because you're thinking, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I making this up? Is this really happening? And it's really important that you understand that it's a real thing. Invisible illnesses are a real thing. So just because you can't see it or someone else can't see it, that doesn't mean that there's not something going on in your body. This isn't to say that every time you think something's wrong, but for the most part, your body and when something isn't right, especially if it's going on for a long time. At a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm not making this up and I really need help. So it's important to have people around you who support you, even if they don't understand what's going on, so that you feel less, crazy, for lack of a better word. And so I'm thankful that my family, even though they didn't really understand what was going on, once they realized that this was a serious matter, took it seriously, because I needed that support. The following months after surgery just included a lot of recovering, a lot of resting, a lot of relearning myself and my body and the things that I used to do and all that kind of stuff. Doctor's appointments, of course, checkups, making sure everything was okay, MRIs to make sure the tumor wasn't going back, and just a lot of follow-up stuff. And I ended up, I think I mentioned it before, I'm not sure if I did, but I ended up just unfollowing a lot of the Cushing's groups that I had joined on Facebook, because at a certain point, it was kind of having the opposite effect on me. It wasn't helpful anymore, especially in the recovery, because I didn't know what recovery was going to look like for me. So to see other people's stories about recovery and some of the really, hard things that they had to go through, the scary things, gave me more anxiety. So it was easier for me to stop getting so much knowledge about the recovery process and what could happen and people's tumors coming back and having to have a second surgery and all those different things. It was just like, okay, this is actually not helping me anymore. And I think it's better to just take a step back and let my recovery play out how it's going to play out. And that's, I think, maybe part of the reason why I don't know. Sometimes I am hesitant to tell people who are going through it my journey because I don't want to scare them. But at the same time, it could give somebody hope who is at the beginning stages of it and doesn't know what the process will look like at all. And that's why I'm sharing now, is because there's somebody out there who may not even know that they have Cushing's, but they have these symptoms and they feel like something is going on, but they don't know where to start or who to ask, or maybe they're not being listened to. And I just want to make somebody feel a little bit more comfortable and to let them know that it's okay to advocate for yourself and to push for testing or whatever else it might be that you need, because diseases are real, illnesses are real. And as much as, I believe in manifesting and that kind of thing, thinking positive, sometimes your body, there's physically something going on with your body, and thinking positive is great and together with medical advice and medical care, or mental health care, whatever it is. Like, manifesting and affirming is really great, but make sure that you're also taking care of yourself and your health in the way that works for you, and making sure that you're in a healthy state. So that is why I want to share now my journey. The last 2 years of my journey has just been mostly following up, going to doctors, making sure everything's okay, monitoring my symptoms, relearning myself really, and having to reestablish my relationship with my spirituality, because for I don't know how long, maybe a couple weeks, a couple months after surgery, I just felt lost again. And I got in that, dark night of the soul, tower moment type thing, where I was just like, I feel lost. I feel disconnected to my spirituality. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how to feel. I have all these mixed emotions about what I've just gone through. And now I kind of have to start all over again and figure out how to get myself back connected to my spiritual beliefs, because even meditation wasn't working for me. The anxiety attacks that I had post-surgery were really intense, as they were before I started, meditating, all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, it's not working. The tools that I had before are not working. So can I believe in them? Do they really work? All these different things. And it was like, I had to stop and remember that, yes, they do work, but I'm also a human, and I'm also somebody who just went through a major life change, which means that some of my routines have to change. And the things that worked for me before may not work for me anymore. And to be okay with it, and not to think of it as something to worry about, but just something that now I get to explore different things. I get to explore different ways of managing anxiety and stress and all those different things, aside from what I had been doing up until that point. So I'm not sure if that's something that's common for all, people who go through the Cushing's, the brain tumor removal surgery. But I know for me, I did go through a point of just almost feeling like it was an identity crisis. Like, who am I? What am I doing? What is my purpose here? Just kind of shedding a lot of layers as I kind of became this new person who is not walking around with a tumor on their brain anymore. What does that even look like? So that was a journey within itself, figuring out and discovering new things that I liked. What is it that I like now? Who am I going to be when this recovery process is, a little bit further down the line and I feel better? What types of things am I going to do now? Who showed up for me when I really needed them? So reassessing the people in my life, like who was actually there for me once I needed them and they knew that I needed surgery, and all these different things, who showed up for me and who checked in with me, and all that kind of stuff, because it's telling, I guess, to see who the real people who really care about you are during a time when you're down and you're going through something major. And the thing that I had to kind of remind myself about is I had brain surgery in the middle of COVID. So this is 2 months into COVID. So we're not even a year into COVID. So other people that I know around me are also dealing with this huge change in the world and may not be doing the best mentally and may not be coping well. So I had to also remember to give people grace, because yes, I had gone through a brain surgery, but people are also going through their own, whatever's with the world changing and maybe not being able to work or having to be home all the time and, all those different things. So I had to give a little bit of grace while still being mindful of people who were making my journey about themselves and putting themselves first before me, because that did happen. There were certain people in my life who were more concerned that I didn't tell them about my surgery than they were about me actually needing surgery, and made a big deal about that versus checking in with me and making sure that I was okay. How am I feeling? All those different things. So it just was a really big time to reevaluate a lot of things in my life and to become a different version of myself. Maybe growth, I guess you could say. I grew a lot during that time. I grew up a lot. That was the same year that I turned 30, so definitely was not the way that I planned on spending my 30th birthday, but that's what happened. And I think that as much as I dreaded and didn't want to go through the surgery and, wished that I didn't have Cushing's and all that stuff, when I look back on it, I'm really grateful for everything that it taught me and everything that I had to go through to now be this person who can share with other people that it's okay, you can make it through. It's going to be difficult, but from my point of view, you can make it to the other side. There were times within the recovery, especially in the first year, where I was just like, I didn't have a lot of hope and I didn't feel good. I wasn't looking at the positive. I wasn't looking at the bright side. I was just like, I don't understand why I have to be going through this and why I have to feel this way and why, I have to experience this. Like, why is this happening to me? And it was something that I really had to work through and that I had to pray through and that I had to write, journal through and talk through and go back to therapy and make sure that I was taking care of myself and the new person that I was, because I'm not the same person that I was before I had surgery. A couple months, I won't say a couple months, but towards the end of the year, so I had surgery on Cinco de Mayo, so in May. And, towards, September, I still was carrying a lot of the weight that I had gained when I found out I had Cushing. So when I first went in surgery, I was 198 pounds. So that was the heaviest I had ever been. And I was very uncomfortable. I'm not a tall person, so it was a lot of weight on me. And I didn't feel good about myself. And I had researched, and looked on the groups and stuff before and saw that people had lost a lot of weight after, because Cushing's had caused them to gain a lot of weight. So I'm thinking like, okay, so as soon as I get the tumor removed, the tumor is going to be gone. I'm going to lose the weight. It's going to be fine. And that's not what happened. I didn't understand how tumor removal works. I didn't know that, there would still be residual, like, the outside of the tumor cap or whatever would be left. And just all these different medical things that I didn't understand that made me panic and made me think that things didn't go well. And I didn't lose the weight right away. So I was afraid that, it didn't work. Just things didn't work. And, what does that mean? And just panicking and giving myself a lot of anxiety. And it took several months for me to finally start dropping weight and kind of my body learning to adjust to this new way of being without a tumor causing my body to exert excessive amounts of cortisol and new levels of how my body is quote unquote supposed to be. And my body learning how to be this new version of itself took a while. It wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't right away. And I would say it took at least a good full year for me to get to a place where I felt like, okay, my body's finally settling in a place where I don't think that it's gonna get any lower than this. And I was okay with that. So learning to accept my body for how it was and how it is now, and to be comfortable with myself, and to be comfortable with sharing my story, and all of those different things came with the journey. And I hope that I'm making sense. I always feel like I'm rambling a little bit when I tell this story because there's so many parts to it. But the main thing that I want to get across is that it was a journey. It was well worth it. Now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm very thankful for it. While I was in it, it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel good. It felt awful. But it has changed my life for the better. I'm still to this day, 2 years later, figuring out my body and, adjusting. Like I said, I still have migraines. There's still other underlying issues that came to the light after the surgery because the excessive amounts of cortisol my body was getting was kind of masking other issues that was going on. So now that my cortisol levels are a little bit more normal, my body's kind of giving me these flags of like, hey, check this out. And it wasn't a lot of things, but it's definitely things that I wouldn't have been able to pay attention to before because the Cushing's was just masking it all. So now I'm on a journey to finding out how to best take care of my body the way it is now. And that's a journey within itself. It's something I'm still working on and still need to work with my doctors to figure out. But for the most part, I am in a much better place. I've been through a lot of ups and downs. Some had to do with the Cushing's journey and some didn't. But at the end of the day, I believe that I went through that journey so that I could share this story with other people and inspire somebody else who's going through this journey to let you know that, one, it's okay to advocate for yourself if you feel like something is going on with your body. That, two, you may not be crazy. You may not be crazy. I mean, I don't know you personally, but there's a chance that you may not be, losing your mind and that there really is something going on. And all it takes is that one person to believe you and to say, let's really check this out for things to turn around. And that's what it took for me. It took me to keep asking and to keep asking the right people and to be led in the right direction and to finally get that person that said, I think something else is going on. Let's check this out, for me to get the answers that I needed. So please don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, respectfully, if you feel like something is going on. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I'm not a medical professional. I don't know anybody's medical history. I'm not a doctor. I have no hands in that. I can only speak for myself and to speak to my experience of not having people really believe me and just kind of getting quick fix answers and having to continue to ask and ask and ask to finally get to the point where I got answers and I got, resolution. So just be mindful of that. Take care of your health, take your health seriously, take your mental health seriously, take your emotional health seriously. Stay encouraged, know that you're not alone, seek help, seek support. And if anyone out there is experiencing Cushing's or thinks that they might be, experiencing Cushing's disease, you can always reach out to me on my Instagram, which is always linked on the show notes. And just, I can give you what I got. I can't give you any medical advice, but I can be a source of support if you need it. You can also find me on my YouTube, which is also linked in my link tree, which is in the show notes. And I have, a couple episodes about my Cushing's journey on there. But yeah, I hope that this helped at least one person, that might be on this journey, to get some answers or to get some motivation, feel supported, and can turn things around for themselves and really, really just change your life. Because my life has been changed by just that one person believing me. So I thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient, because I know this episode took a long time. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.